to make a difference for the next generation. It was the people of years ago that, or was people like yourself that made a difference for the future. Now we got to continue helping the future. Okay, good morning, everybody. We are on Chaf Dalet Amud Beis. We're on 24b. And this is the place to be, right over here in the shul. We were discussing regarding the get, regarding that a get cannot be written on an animal, according to one opinion of Yoshek Lili. And the Gemara says, he says, he has a drasha. The pasuk says sefer, and on a cloth, on a parchment paper, parchment. That's the standard way we write that's the standard way we do it. Oh, great! Because the Gemara, there was a rabbi that put a few laws together: a law regarding sukkah and a law regarding get. Because he said you can't use an animal for a wall of a sukkah, and he also said you can't use an animal for a get. You can't write the bill of divorce on an animal. And the Gemara said, this is the back in the Gemara. This is the Gemara talking. One of the rabbis in the Gemara, a couple almost 2,000 years ago, and the Gemara wanted to know what was the reason for Rabbi Yosef Levi, and the Gemara brought a braita where the pasuk when the Torah Maxi with us 24b, we'll still read you back 24b1, and the Gemara brought a braita that the Torah says when it talks about get, mentions the word sefer. So sefer means a Rabbi Yosef Lili understands sefer means like a parchment, like a book, like something that. And the Gemara said, how do you know other items? How do you know you can write it on piece of wood, a wooden board? So he said, because the Torah says the word v'katav la. The Torah wrote some extra words. It seemed to, and there's no extra word in the Torah. And the Torah wrote the words v'katav. Morning, Jaime. We're just bringing everybody up to today's Gemara because we left off yesterday in middle of a piece. So the Gemara said the word v'katav teaches us that a bill of divorce could be written on other items besides parchment. It could be written on a board, on a wooden board. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, so why does the Torah say the word sefer? If it doesn't need to be parchment, doesn't need to be a normal writing document material that you usually write on, you can even take a wooden board and write a get on. So the Gemara, Rabbi Yosef clearly understands that sefer teaches you that if coming to exclude something that has life, and that something that is a food, because the properties of the characteristic traits of a sefer, of a parchment, it's not alive. Parchment is not a living item, and parchment is also not a food. That's what But again, so wood is not parchment. I'm sorry, wood is not alive, and wood is not food. As long as you meet the criteria that the thing is not alive and it's not food, then you could use that item from writing material for a get. Therefore, a wooden board is permitted to be used as a get, but not a live animal and not food. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Maybe that's why someone would want to use a wooden board. Might be a little easier to have a wooden board than to work out the parchment. It takes work to work out the parchment. The Gemara says, Rabbanan. We're on 24b1. We are on the bottom of the page. The bottom column 1, 24b1, bottom column. We're trying to understand the Rabbanan. But the Rabbanan do not find, it does not exclude writing on an animal. They do not say there's a problem. The Torah does not, obviously, how many people are going to write a get on an animal? It's going to be very time consuming. It's not, but the Rabbanan do not have this this limud. They don't use the verse to teach us to exclude an animal. They don't have an exclusion of an animal. And technically, it would seem that they would hold that you could go ahead and write as long as you write it's written on something, it's good. And you gave it has the text of a divorce written on some sort of material. And that should prevail. I mean, usually the law does follow the Rabbanan, that usually they're the majority opinion. So technically, the Torah does not exclude writing the get on some other type of item, even something like an animal. That would seem to be parchment, even a live animal. The parchment is not a live animal. So even a live animal, there's no exclusion of writing a get. So the Gemara says, how do they understand the pasuk? How do they read the pasuk? So he says like this: I katav b'sefer. If the Torah would write the words v'katav b'sefer, if the Torah would say v'katav la krisut b'sefer, if the Torah would say you write it in a sefer, you write the divorce, so to speak, the separation between the husband and the wife in a sefer, so that would be, that sefer would clearly mean kiddush amri. That would mean the word parchment, like b'sefer, like b'sefer haTorah, something. This sefer would mean in the sefer, in the parchment. You would write in the parchment. But hashadik sefer krisut. But now the Torah doesn't write the word bas sefer. The Torah says you write to the woman a sefer krisut, not in a sefer. Sefer could also mean the word sipur, like you have the word sipur yesiat mitzrayim. There's a mitzvah to tell the story of Egypt. So because you have to write to the woman the story of divorce, you have to write to the woman that you are now cutting ties between you and the woman. It's coming to tell us that you write, you tell her, you say a sipur. You write, you say, what do you say? Harei at muteret l'chol adam. What does it say? What's one of the meat and the potatoes of the get? It says that you are permitted to marry everybody. That's what's happening as a result of the get. Until she gets the get, she's not permitted to marry. She's tied to the husband that she's married to. Now that she gets the get, now that releases her and allows her to marry someone else. So therefore, the wording of the pasuk is not telling us in any way, the Torah is not identifying the type of item that has to be written on. The Chachamim say the Torah only says you have to write to her the story. You have to write the story of closing ties between you and her. The Torah is not telling you you have to write it on a parchment. It never told you parchment. So therefore, the Chacham say it says you have to write a story of closing ties between you and the husband and the wife. And what does it mean, closing ties? That now you now will become permitted to marry another person. Until the get, they're tied together, and because they're tied together, she's not allowed to marry anybody else. But the get is now going to free her to be able to marry someone else. So that is what person needs to write in the get, and that's what the Torah is telling us. The Torah, according to the Chachamim, is not identifying the item that it's written on. It's not identifying an object, and therefore there's no exclusion. Therefore, according to Chachamim, the Torah is not excluding an animal to write it on an animal. I don't think it's so practical. I don't think it's so simple. we have a veterinarian in the class. I don't know, a doctor here. I don't know if he'll tell you. So I don't know. How, I don't know if he's going to recommend it, but the Torah does not, forbade. Who knows the situation the person is in? What? Yes, there needs to be witnesses on a gift. There needs to be witnesses on a. Sometimes they have witnesses that watch the giving over of the get. Sometimes there's something called witness. The discussion in the Gemara and Gittin is witnesses are they vital to the giving over of the get, on the signing of the get. That's the discussion in the Gemara and Gittin. But there are witnesses that are needed for a get. Mainly it's the witnesses have to sign. Now the Gemara says the Rabbanan. So the Gemara wants to know Katav my darshibe. Now that we said, what do they do with the word the Katav? It says the Katavla. You see the Gemara, since the Rabbanan say that it can be written on any item, right? You see, according to the other opinion that says sefer means parchment. So therefore, he needed the extra word v'katav to tell you could write on other items besides parchment, namely wood or some other items. But the Rabbanan don't need an extra words to teach you can write on other things besides parchment, because Torah never told you specifically parchment. The other rabbi needed to tell you can write it on a wooden board. That's why you needed the extra word, because the Torah says you write on parchment, so you might think only parchment. Comes the extra word, the katav, tell you, but it's not limited to parchment. There are other items also that you can write on. But according to the Rabbanan, they never had parchment to begin with in the pasuk. So and you would know wooden board without an extra pasuk. So what do we need the word the katav? So the Gemara says like this. The Gemara, it's teaching you the katav that the only way the woman would get divorced is it has to be a writing. There has to be something done through writing. It can't be done through money. A person can't divorce his wife the same way he married his wife. The guy gave her a ring, gave her money. Ring is just a substitute for money. But one of the ways that a person gets married is through kesef, through money. That's how the first Mishnah Kedushin opens up. And you can marry a woman through money or through the value of money. The ring is just a value of money. That's all the ring represents. So you might have said the same way you could marry her through money, you could divorce her by giving her money and saying, here, this is the money, and you are now free to marry someone else. And why would you think money? Because there is a comparison of certain laws of marriage and divorce that we learned there. The Torah compares marriage to divorce, and there's certain laws that will be similar by marriage and divorce. So and therefore you might have said maybe it'd also be similar in this aspect, right? Let's say for instance, a person divorces a woman through a document. A person marries a woman through a document. There's also a way you could marry a woman. We don't use a document as marriage. We marry through a ring. That's the thing that creates a marriage. So look what the Gemara says. The Torah writing the word v'katavla, the husband has to write us something. It's teaching us that the only thing that can be used to divorce his wife, to cut the ties, is a writing. Because I might have thought, since the Torah compares the going out, the divorce to the coming into marriage, the Torah says, the pasuk says, "V'yatsa v'hayta li'isha." She goes out from the first husband, and she marries another husband. The Torah compares the leaving of the house, the divorce, to the coming to a marriage, to another marriage. And the Gemara obviously learns certain laws that have similarities based on that. So So I might have thought, just like the marriage took effect, was created through money, I might think the going out is also through giving her money. Maybe that's a way to depart, to divorce her. Therefore, Kamash Malan, therefore the Torah is teaching you, no. The only way to divorce a woman, Jewish woman, is only through something that's in writing. And the writing says that you're now permitted through this document, through this writing, not necessarily document, through this writing, that you now become permitted to marry anybody.
You're talking about Sukkah, and then you compared a mantle
Right.
to the wall, and that you can't ride on it.
Right. Because the style of the Gemara is that once they bring up a subject, they like you to understand the subject. Even though we brought a rabbi made a statement, we don't cut the rabbi's statement in half. We bring the whole statement of the rabbi. So the rabbi said, you can't use an animal for a sukkah, for a wall of a sukkah. You can't use an animal to write a bill of divorce. So therefore, once we quoted that rabbi, the Gemara feels it's necessary. On the subject. We quoted it. We're not going to just. We're going to explain that subject. Now, Rabbi Yossi Haglili. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yossi Haglili, how does he know that you cannot divorce a woman using money? He uses the pasuk of katav. It has to be for something else. So how does he know if it's not extra to teach us this law that it has to be written? So how does he know? Meaning, there's no question. There's no question. The only way to divorce a woman is through a get. It's through a bill of divorce. There's no other way that a woman could become committed to another man. There is a joke out there. I'm not a man of too many jokes. There was a guy that wasn't divorcing his wife, and he was holding her. Which is a terrible story. But Torah says, we see from the Sefer Chinuch, that if the marriage is over, he's not allowed to hold his wife hostage. He has a mitzvah. I mean, if it's over, it's over. He has a mitzvah to give his wife again, and it would seem he's violating one of the 613 mitzvot. That's what it would seem to me. I'm not a posek, but he's violating his responsibility. If it's over, she hasn't been, and she's being tied to somebody else, and she's stuck, and she can't marry anybody else. Good morning. And she wants the right to marry somebody else. So the joke goes, they go to the husband and they say like this. The family, the Mishnah says there's one of two ways that a person could divorce his wife, that a woman could be permitted to marry somebody, either through death of the husband, or through money out, or through a get. Which one do you want? That's what they told him. Now, there is a law that you can't force a husband to divorce a wife. That's another law. So whether that tactic is halachically acceptable, might not be halachically acceptable. Such a tactic might make a problem. If a get is forced upon the man, if he's forced to give a get, it's issues. It's not.
Rabbi, there's that trick of the mikveh. I remember you.
Yeah, some people might use the mikveh. That's right. But I will tell you. But I think also Jaime, the mikveh, I think was also. I know it was. I heard it more used for a moser. A moser, someone who snitches. I heard that's where they really used it. The community would take the guy and drown him in the mikveh, and they would say he died natural causes. He drowned in the mikveh. He didn't drown in the mikveh. He died because they killed him in the mikveh, because he was endangering the community by snitching to the government. But so that's the story but you should know, it's a fascinating Rambam. It's an amazing Rambam I want to share with everybody. It says in the Rambam that if a husband doesn't want to give a get willingly, the court could force him until he says, I want. They can actually force him. They can get physical with the guy, whatever they need to do to get him to say, I want. And he says, I want. And he says, okay, I'll appoint the court to give the get on his behalf. There is such a halacha in the Rambam. You can force him until he says, I want. So the obvious question is, how is that willing? How is that a willing divorce? If it has to be done willingly, and you can't force, and it can't be done that he's forced, so how is it help that you force him until he says, I want? Mr. Batesh, you hear the question? So the Rambam says a fascinating thing. Listen to this. This is like unbelievable. The Rambam says every person really wants to do the right thing in life. Every Jew wants to do the right thing. But you know what? We get caught up with all the distractions of life and the Yetzer Hara and the evil inclination that makes it really tough for us. That makes it tough for us to see the light, to make the right decision. So then when they force a person until he says, I want, then really that's his true desire is really coming out. That's what the Rambam says. And therefore it's not really, that's really what you want. And therefore it's not called you force the person to do something that it's against his will. This is really the will of the Jew. It's a fascinating Rambam, and that's why, now again, the only people, nobody has the power today, unless you're a court. Only a Jewish court could say, to do certain things to the husband. Nobody could, do anything on their own. And some people wind up in jail for doing such things to a husband, being physical with a husband. But everybody, all the husbands who need to learn what the halacha says. They need to know if they have an obligation to give a get. They're supposed to follow the Torah and ask whatever the rabbis say, whatever the chacham say, they should follow. Yes. Talk a little louder so everybody can hear.
We don't know what is actually part, right? Because we don't know what's actually part. And if there's a suffix, if there's a doubt, might as well do whatever doubt, might as well judge him for the best. So obviously, we don't know what's in his heart. We assume he's probably a righteous guy. He wants to do the right thing. He wants to give the divorce.
Yeah, but let's say you asked him beforehand about giving a divorce, and he says, "I don't want to do it." And then the court says, the court told him you have to do it. You have to listen. He has to listen to the court. He has to listen to the rabbis. But for whatever reason, he's not listening. So then the rabbis, again, you have to be rabbis who are able to do such. We don't have that power today to do. End up in jail if the court would be strict. Okay. So now the Gemara says, Rabbi Yosef Glili. We are now on the bottom of 24b1. Rabbi Yosef Glili. How does he know that there's no other way of divorcing the wife besides an actual writing? It has to be something that has to be written. It has to be a written item. Hi, Swarminale. See, the Gemara says, Sefer Krisut. The Torah wrote the word Krisut, which means Kritut, which means cutting, separating of ties between the husband and the wife. It wrote it right next to the word Sefer. So by writing it next to that, it's teaching you Sefer Kota. It's only something that's in writing. The Torah connects the cessation of ties in the husband and the wife, the divorce, to a sefer. A sefer, a book, is something that you write. And since it's something that you write, the way Rabbi Yosef Glili translates the word sefer, the only thing that could cause a divorce, the only way a husband could divorce a wife is only through something that's in writing. It has to be writing, and there's a specific text that needs to be said. Like when I said yesterday, I said that it's a 12-line document. It's not a large document, and that's the only thing that could do it. Only a sefer, the end of a and nothing else could separate, could close the ties and separate the ties between the husband and the wife. people can be separated for as long as they're separated. They're not divorced. Divorce is only, and I think if a couple is separated for a long period of time, and he's supposed to, and if the marriage is over, I think what the husband is really also doing, if he doesn't give the get, he might be creating a stumbling block for his wife. Imagine a young woman could she's young, and the husband's not giving her a divorce. Chas v'shalom, if she goes with another man, if they can be separated from the first husband for a year, she goes 2 years. If she goes with another man, she's considered an adulteress. She committed adultery. Mr. Ritesh, that's a strong statement, right? It's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's one of the 10 commandments. She's obligated death for going with another man because she's still not divorced. It's the same thing like a lady who hasn't had a period. She stopped having a period and she never went to the mikveh. After she stopped having a period, whatever, she had a period, she didn't go to the mikveh. It could be a year later. She's still in nidah. The lady, the fact that she's not having a period, but if she did not go to if the last time she had a period, she didn't go to the mikveh, so she's still in nidah. A lady had a period at the age of 50, right? And then she stopped having a period. And she didn't go to the mikveh the last time after she had a period. And now she's 60. She's 60. She's in nidah. All those years, she still remains in nidah until she goes to the mikveh after she had her last period. Obviously, she should be going every time but whatever the case is, there could be there are 80-year-old women today that are nidah. Why are they in nidah? Because they didn't go to the mikveh. It's just something to think about. Let's say a lady wants to do tshuva. She's married, and she didn't go to the mikveh. She never went to the mikveh her whole life. She's 65 years old. She's married, so she should be going. She doesn't have a period. She has to go to the mikveh to become a non-nidah. Is that clear? Everything is clear. What I'm saying? Okay, that's the same. Okay, so the Gemara says the idah. The Gemara says, what are the Chachamim? The rabbis, what do they do with the connection of the pasuk of Krisut to Sefer? What do they do with this? They already know that it has to be something that's written. So what do they do with this? When the Torah is connecting this idea of separation to Sefer, the only way a divorce takes effect if it's a real cutting of separation. If the divorce has a stipulation that's still connecting the husband to the wife, that's not separation. That's not a divorce. That's not a cutting of ties if she's still bound to the husband. What's the example? The husband says to the wife, I'm giving you the divorce, the get, on the condition that you never drink wine. Or I'm giving you a divorce on the condition that you don't go to your parents' house, right? Maybe these are two examples that could have caused issues in the marriage. Maybe she was drinking, and because she was drinking, she got a little bit, she was not modest. I'm just giving you a little, throwing a little something to the case. Or because sometimes in-laws get involved too much. In-laws have to know their space, how to be proper in-laws, and don't create issues. You should just, sometimes in-laws need to get a little lesson of education before their children get married. Too many times in-laws don't know their place. I mean, thank God most of the time they're great, they're amazing, but sometimes there are in-laws that don't know their place. Sometimes it's not the in-laws' fault, it's just that the son-in-law or the daughter-in-law don't know how to deal. They're very young. It's something they don't know. I'm not blaming youth on this, but something they don't know how to deal with people that are a little different than them. Sometimes they maybe it's the son-in-law, daughter-in-law that's the problem, not the in-laws the problem. But sometimes people are not there yet to appreciate their in-laws, which we have an obligation to honor our in-laws. By the way, people make a mistake. Some people think that in-laws have to honor that son-in-law, daughter-in-law. It's really son-in-law have an obligation to honor their in-laws. Is that correct, Mr. Haber? People we have to remind them of the Shulchan Aruch, right? It's not that they owe me, we owe them, we owe our in-laws. Mr. Ritesh, you like that line? Okay, so the Gemara, that's the halacha. You're with the halacha. That's the halacha. So the Gemara, I get two Mr. Beteshes on the deal here. So the Gemara says, "Hahu meboyle dava koreit beino lebeina." You have to. It has to be a total split. Kedetanya, like we learned the bright. A guy says to his wife, "This is your bill of divorce." He writes the divorce. But he conditions it. He says, "You're not allowed to drink wine forever. You're not allowed to go to your father's house." Or he wants to get, or he's a bad boy, the husband, who wants to get his wife. Let's not blame the wife. He wants to get his wife. How do he want to get his wife? He wants to get his wife, not to get. He wants to hurt his wife by saying, "You're not allowed to go. I'm going to give you a gift, but you're not allowed to go to your parents' house. You're not allowed to drink wine." He knows she likes these things. Not a good thing for a lady to drink. Oh, very good. So if he says Olam, if he says you're never allowed to go to your parents, therefore she's always tied to him, to the husband, because he conditioned the divorce. So then aims that crease. That's not called you cut her off. You didn't cut ties if she's still stuck with something about you because she's stuck with your condition. That's not called a divorce. However, but if he limits it 30 days, I'm giving you the divorce for 30 days. You can't go to your mother's house, parents, and father's house. 30 days you can't drink wine. Then, since it's not open-ended, since it's going to come to an end in 30 days, so Rashi says it takes effect. The divorce takes effect now. She has to keep the condition. She can't go to her father's house for 30 days. She can't drink wine for 30 days. But since she's not going to be totally tied to the husband, and therefore the get, that's called you did an act of cutting ties with the husband. That's a good question. The Gemara says he's not allowed to stipulate it forever, but he could stipulate it for 30 days. But what about in between? That's a good question. Right. But the point is, when he gives a divorce, is she still tied to him after the divorce? Meaning the question is, after the divorce, like he said, "I'm giving you the get." It should take effect the moment before he dies. So once it takes effect, she's not tied to him anymore. You could give again in such a way. A person give again, no one. But you can't give it. It can't be that after the get takes effect, after the divorce, she's still bound to the husband. Like he divorced her, but she can't drink wine because the husband because she's still tied to the husband in that fashion. That's not called you cut off ties. Cut off ties is that she's not tied to the husband in any way in a permanent sense. But that's a good question, Mr. Abraham. Exactly what will be in between 30 days and a year and forever? That would have to be looked into. Have a great day, everybody. On the fascinating Gemara. We're going to leave it. I don't want people to be late to davening. We have 2 lines left, but I don't want to be late to davening. Jaime, any questions on the any questions? Great. Have a great day. You too.